They poured 3.25 million cubic yards of concrete in 2 years. Today, we can't repair a spillway in that time. Hoover Dam, finished 1935, 2 years early, under budget. The cooling system, 582 miles of pipe in the concrete, didn't exist when they started. Without it, the dam would still be curing today, 90 years later. We have better tools now, better materials, better everything. We've lost the capacity to do it, not because we forgot, because we made it illegal. It killed 96 men, probably 140. They worked 360 days a year in 140-degree tunnels, breathing carbon monoxide, dangled from cliffs on ropes with dynamite, died, company paid $500, hired the next man, 5,000 men in line. The speed and the deaths were the same thing. Fast because men were cheap. Concrete never stopped because shifts never stopped. We traded speed for safety. Right trade. So why can't we build anything? Concrete doesn't just harden, it cooks. When cement and water mix, hydration begins. The reaction is exothermic. Heat builds. In a sidewalk, the heat dissipates into air. The concrete cures in days. In a mass pour, a dam, a bunker, a foundation, the heat is trapped. The outer surface hardens first and seals. The interior becomes an oven. Hoover Dam contains 6.6 million tons of concrete. That's 13.2 billion pounds. Concrete generates roughly 40 degrees Fahrenheit of heat per million pounds during curing. Do the simple math. The interior would reach 800 to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. At those temperatures, concrete doesn't cure. It destroys itself. Thermal expansion cracks it from inside. The outer shell contracts as it cools. The inner core is still expanding. The structure tears itself apart. Catastrophic internal fracturing before the concrete finishes setting. And here's the timeline nightmare. Concrete this thick cools at roughly 1 year per 8 feet of thickness. Hoover Dam is 660 feet thick at the base, 82 years, minimum. Some engineers said 125 years. Either way, the dam would finish curing sometime around 2015, maybe 2060. They had 5 years to build it. That was the physics trying to kill them. An invisible fire locked inside the stone, a bomb on a century-long timer. The invisible weapon Frank Crow knew monolithic pours were suicide. He'd built dams before. Arrow Rock, Jackson Lake, Tieton. He knew the heat problem. He knew thermal cracking. He knew no dam this size had ever been attempted because the physics said no. So he didn't pour it as one piece. He poured it as 230 individual columns, each column roughly 50 feet square, 5 feet tall per lift. Pour one lift, let it cool. Pour the next on top, repeat. The dam rose like interlocking blocks. But even in a 5-foot lift, even in a 50-foot column, the heat was still lethal. So they buried a cooling system inside the concrete itself. Before each pour, workers laid a grid of 1-inch steel pipes across the previous lift. The pipes ran in parallel lines, 3 feet apart. Then they poured concrete over the pipes, buried them, entombed them. The pipes became part of the structure, but before the concrete set, while the hydration reaction was cooking the interior, they pumped refrigerated water through the pipes. 582 miles of pipe total. Nearly 25,000 linear feet per column. The water came from a dedicated ammonia refrigeration plant built on site. Capacity, 1,000 tons of refrigeration. It ran 24 hours a day for 4 years. River water was chilled to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, then pumped into the buried network. The cold water pulled the heat out of the concrete as it cured, like veins bleeding a fever. The pipes ran for 7 to 14 days per section, depending on ambient temperature and pore size. Thermometers embedded in the concrete told them when the temperature dropped below safe limits. When the concrete cooled, they stopped the water. Then they pumped grout into the pipes. The grout hardened. The pipes became structural reinforcement, permanent steel bones inside the dam. This wasn't just innovative, it was medically precise. Surgery on stone. The implementation. Each column required roughly 5,000 linear feet of pipe per lift, nearly a mile of pipe, per lift, per column. They were pouring multiple columns simultaneously. The pipes arrived on site pre-cut to specification. Workers laid them out in grid patterns, parallel runs, 3 feet on center, with 180-degree return bends at the ends to create continuous serpentine paths. Welders connected the sections. Inspectors checked every joint. Then the concrete arrived. Buckets came down from the cableways every 78 seconds, 8 cubic yards per bucket. 16,000 pounds of wet concrete slamming into the forms. The pipes had to survive the impact. If they shifted, if they bent, if they crushed, the system failed. So the pipes were anchored, wire ties to the rebar, spacers to maintain grid spacing. The grid had to stay level, stay parallel, stay intact while tons of concrete buried it. The concrete was poured in layers, not dumped, poured. Spread by hand with shovels and vibrators. The vibrators consolidated the mix, eliminated air pockets, ensured the concrete flowed around the pipes without voids. While the concrete was still wet, crews connected the cooling pipes to supply and return headers at the edge of each column. The headers connected to main refrigeration lines. The refrigeration lines connected to the plant. Within hours of the pour, cold water was flowing through pipes buried under tons of fresh concrete. Thermocouples embedded in the concrete sent temperature readings to the control room. Engineers monitored every column, every lift, every section. If temperature spiked, they increased flow rate. If it dropped too fast, they slowed it. Concrete that cools too quickly cracks just as easily as concrete that overheats. They were thermally managing 3.25 million cubic yards of concrete simultaneously in the desert in 1933. The payoff. It worked. The cooling system reduced the curing time from 125 years to 2 years. The dam finished pouring in May 1935. By 1937, the cooling was complete. The pipes were grouted. The concrete had reached ambient temperature without a single catastrophic thermal crack. The refrigeration plant processed over 1 billion gallons of water during the cooling process. The ammonia compressors ran for 4 years straight without major failure, and the pipes are still in there. 582 miles of steel, now grouted solid, reinforcing the dam from the inside. They didn't remove them, couldn't remove them. They're part of the structure now, permanent ghosts of the cooling system. The dam still stands, still generates power, still holds back the Colorado River. The concrete is still structurally sound after 90 years. Because they bled the fever out before it could kill. The modern impossibility. You couldn't do this today. Not legally, not safely, not within any modern regulatory framework. OSHA confined space regulations would categorize the interior of a partially poured dam column as a permit-required confined space. That means continuous air monitoring, forced ventilation, a standby rescue team, and entry permits for every worker who goes inside to lay pipe. The Hoover crews worked in spaces with no ventilation. Ambient temperatures inside the forms regularly hit 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Carbon monoxide from gasoline-powered concrete vibrators accumulated in the air. Men passed out. They were dragged out. Work continued. Today, OSHA would shut it down immediately. Ventilation requirements alone would require massive ducting systems, exhaust fans, continuous atmospheric monitoring. The heat would violate thermal stress guidelines. You can't legally ask workers to lay pipe in 120-degree heat with no cooling breaks. The refrigeration plant would require hazardous material permits for the ammonia. Ammonia is toxic. It's corrosive. A major leak could kill everyone on site. Modern ammonia refrigeration plants require secondary containment, leak detection systems, emergency shutdown protocols, and a comprehensive hazardous materials response plan. The Hoover plant had none of that. It was an open-air system. If it leaked, workers ran upwind. If it leaked badly, workers died. It never leaked badly enough to stop work. The environmental impact statement would be a multi-year nightmare. You're chilling 1 billion gallons of river water and dumping it back into the Colorado River at a different temperature. That changes the river's temperature downstream. It affects fish populations, algae growth, entire ecosystem balance. In 1931, nobody cared about downstream thermal pollution. In 2025, that's a multi-year environmental review process. The Endangered Species Act would require formal consultation. The Clean Water Act would require a discharge permit with strict temperature limits. Environmental advocacy groups would sue to stop construction. The EIS alone would take longer than the entire dam took to build. The engineering approval process would strangle it bureaucratically. In 1931, Frank Crowe designed the cooling system, got approval from the Bureau of Reclamation's chief engineer, and started installing pipe. Total approval time, weeks. Today, that same system would require finite element thermal analysis modeling, peer review by independent engineering firms, design review meetings with multiple stakeholder agencies, comprehensive risk assessment documentation, failure mode and effects analysis, and long-term structural monitoring plans. Each of those steps takes months. The design would be reviewed to death before a single pipe was laid. But the real killer is this. The cooling system only worked because they poured fast. The columns had to rise quickly. The lifts had to be poured in rapid succession. The concrete had to stay workable long enough to integrate chemically with the previous lift. Speed wasn't a luxury. Speed was structural. Modern labor laws, safety regulations, and permit requirements make that speed impossible. Maximum consecutive workdays under most state labor laws, 13 days. The Hoover crews worked 360 days a year. Mandatory rest breaks in high heat environments, 15 minutes per hour above 100 degrees. The Hoover crews worked straight through in 140-degree tunnels. Environmental permits for concrete batch plants, 18 to 24 months for approval. Hoover built theirs in 6 weeks and started pouring. The cooling system was brilliant engineering. But it was also the product of a construction tempo that is now illegal in every state. You can't rebuild the Hoover Dam using the method that made the Hoover Dam possible. The physics hasn't changed. The engineering hasn't been forgotten. The law won't allow it. Laws don't enforce themselves. Men do. And the men who built Hoover Dam weren't engineers. They were warlords. The Leader's 6 Companies, Inc. sounds like a law firm. It was a cartel. Henry Kaiser, W.A. Bechtel, Charles Shea, Felix Kahn, Alan MacDonald, J.F. Stevenson, 6 Western construction magnates, competitors, rivals. Some despised each other, but the Bureau of Reclamation's Boulder Dam contract was too big for any one of them. Performance bond, $5 million. Timeline, impossible. Penalties, ruinous. So they pooled capital, divided risk, went to war. The contract had a bonus, $3,000 per day for every day ahead of schedule. That's $63,000 per day in 2025 dollars. They finished 2 years early, 730 days. Bonus, $219 million equivalent to $46 million today. Plus, they bid $48.9 million, finished for $41 million. Total profit over $10 million in Depression dollars, equivalent to $210 million today. That's what built the dam. Not patriotism, not civic pride. Profit, speed, bonuses. To hit the timeline, they hired Frank Crow. Hurry up, Crow. He'd worked for the Bureau of Reclamation for 16 years, built Arrow Rock Dam, Jackson Lake, Teton. He knew mass concrete, knew the Colorado, had surveyed Black Canyon in 1919. When the Bureau authorized Boulder Dam, Crow left, joined 6 companies, told them he could build it in 5 years. They gave him total control. Crow didn't manage, he commanded, arrived before dawn, walked every tunnel, every pour, every form, made decisions on the spot, changed designs mid-construction, fired workers who couldn't keep pace. No design review meetings, no committees, no stakeholder consultations, just foremen. With authority. Foreman said pour, they poured. Foreman said the form was good, it was good. Foreman said a man was too slow. The man was gone. Decision-making, instantaneous. Execution, immediate, not a democracy, a military operation with a profit motive. The war footing? The dam ran 24/7, 365. One work stoppage, July 4th, 1931. Heat strike. Workers demanded drinking water. 6 companies agreed. Work resumed. After that, no holidays, no weekends, no breaks. 3 shifts, 8 hours each, 30-minute overlap for handoff. The dam never slept. You worked graveyard, midnight to 8 a.m. You worked it every night. For months, shifts didn't rotate. The company wanted consistency, machine precision, average work year, 360-plus days. Sick? Lost the day, recovered, came back. No one held your job. 5,000 men in line. Peak construction, June 1934. 5,218 workers on site simultaneously. More than Boulder City's population. 6 companies built Boulder City from scratch. Not a town, a barracks. Population, 7,000. Company owned every building, set every rule. No alcohol, no gambling, no unions. Company police enforced it. Violate, expelled, banned, blacklisted. Before Boulder City, Ragtown. Tent City, no water, no electricity, no sewage. Summer, 120 degrees. Families lived there, children. In 1931, 12,000 men applied for 2,000 jobs. They came from everywhere. Freight trains, walking, jalopies. The company didn't recruit. Desperation recruited. The human wave. The workers weren't specialists, weren't skilled. Farmers, shopkeepers, salesmen, men who'd lost everything. Starting wage, $0.50 per hour. That's $10.50 in 2025 dollars, 8 hours in 120-degree heat-breathing carbon monoxide. Skilled workers, high scalers, powdermen, iron workers made $5.60 per day, about $198 in 2025 dollars, poverty wages. But in 1931, with 25% unemployment, it was survival. The company knew and used it. Workers paid in scrip initially. Company currency, redeemable only at company stores, inflated prices, company clawed back wages. Nevada had no workers' comp law. Injured? Company doctor decided if you could work. Couldn't? Fired? No disability, no compensation. Died? Company paid widow $500 to $1,000 if they paid. Many got nothing. No leverage, no union, no safety regulations, no recourse. The job or nothing. The daily rhythm shift started with the whistle. 7 a.m., 3 p.m., 11 p.m., crews by task. Tunnel crews, concrete crews, high scalers, each with a foreman. Foreman reported to shift supervisor. Supervisor reported to Crow. No middle management, no project managers, no safety officers. Just foremen with authority. Workers with quotas. Tunnels blasting 24 hours a day. Drill teams bored holes, packed dynamite, wired charges, cleared, blew the face, blast brought down tons. Mucking crews went in immediately, cleared debris while rock was settling, while dust choked air, while tunnel was hot from explosion. No ventilation, no testing, no stand down. Next drill team already lining up. Concrete pours, buckets every 78 seconds, 8 cubic yards. Crews spread, vibrated, leveled, ready for next bucket. Fall behind? Bucket dumped on you. Concrete kept coming. Cableway didn't stop. Foreman walked pours constantly. Crew couldn't keep pace? Replaced. On the spot. Always another crew waiting. Compare. California High-Speed Rail. Development since 2008. 17 years. Not operational, not complete. Not an engineering problem, a process problem. Modern projects have project managers, assistant managers, deputy managers, program managers, contract managers, safety managers, environmental managers, community outreach managers, meetings to plan meetings, committees to review committees, approval chains through 8 levels. Design change at Hoover. Crow saw it, told foreman, fixed by end of shift. Design change modern federal project. Engineering identifies issue. Change request. Manager reviews. Director reviews. Agency reviews. Consultants review. Stakeholders comment. Legal reviews. 6 months. Maybe. Hoover poured 10,000 cubic yards per day at peak. Hoover Dam spillway repair, not new, just repair, took 2 years and $1.1 billion. Difference isn't technology, it's tempo. Tempo requires authority concentrated in hands of people who say yes or no immediately. Crow could. Modern managers can't. The modern impossibility. The structure that built Hoover is now illegal. Labor law. Can't work 360 days a year. Federal law limits consecutive days. Most states, 13 days max. OSHA mandates rest breaks, meal breaks, wage law. Scrip illegal since Fair Labor Standards Act 1938. Must pay legal tender. Company store monopolies prohibited. Workers' comp. Every state requires it. Can't waive liability. Injured workers have rights. Union rights. National Labor Relations Act 1935 guaranteed organizing. 6 companies banned it. Expelled sympathizers. Company police enforced. Illegal now. NLRB investigations, lawsuits, fines, split authority. Modern projects require third-party consultants, environmental, safety, quality control. They report to agencies, not project managers. Project manager can't override safety consultant, can't fire them for slowing work. At Hoover, everyone reported to Crow. Crow to 6 companies, 6 companies to profit. Federal acquisition regulation. Design changes require contract modifications. Modifications need contracting officer approval, officer documents justification, legal reviews, public comment if significant. Months. Crow changed things by telling a foreman, do it differently, not reckless, fast, and fast was structural. The dam only worked if built quickly. Cooling system required rapid pours. Diverted river temporary. Tunnels had to seal before river reclaimed them. Delay meant disaster. Speed meant survival. Modern regulatory structures assume time is infinite. Projects can delay indefinitely for review. Hoover proves that's wrong. Some projects have deadlines enforced by physics, not paperwork. We've built a system that doesn't care. Systems don't kill people. Methods do. And the methods that made Hoover Dam fast made it lethal. The conditions. Black Canyon in summer is an oven with stone walls. Ambient temperature, 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Shade temperature. There was no shade. Inside the diversion tunnels, 140 degrees. Men worked 8-hour shifts, drilling, blasting, mucking, pouring. 140 degrees, 8 hours, confined spaces, no ventilation, human core temperature, 98.6 degrees. At 104, organs fail, heat stroke, shutdown, death. Workers drank constantly. Company provided water after the 1931 strike, salt tablets, not enough. Men collapsed daily, dragged out, doused with water. Recovered? Back in, didn't. Hospital, some died there. Company called it heat prostration, natural causes, not workplace injury. Heat wasn't the only killer. Tunnels filled with carbon monoxide, gasoline trucks hauled debris, concrete trucks drove in, exhaust accumulated, no ventilation, no monitoring, no fans. Workers called it tunnel sickness. Headaches, nausea, dizziness, collapse. Company denied connection for months, said heat, said poor health, anything except obvious carbon monoxide poisoning. Finally, after multiple deaths, Bureau forced diesel trucks. Diesel produces less CO. Less, not none. Workers kept getting sick. On canyon walls, high scalers worked different hell. Dangled from 800-foot cliffs on ropes, hemp ropes mostly. Some steel cable, not always. Their job, scale walls, remove loose rock, drill holes, plant explosives, swing clear, detonate, while hanging. In a 120-degree heat, no fall protection, no harness, no backup. Rope broke, you fell 800 feet, you died. Blast went wrong, you died. High scalers invented the hard hat themselves, dipped canvas in tar, let it harden, wore it. Company provided nothing. Concrete pours. Workers stood in wet concrete for hours. Concrete is caustic, alkaline, burns skin, dissolves boots. Chemical burns on legs, feet, hands. Workers wore what they could afford. Most couldn't afford much. Boots dissolved, skin burned, kept working. Concrete came out at 110 to 120 degrees, still reacting, still generating heat. Workers spread by hand, standing in it, breathing dust, no respirators, no protective clothing, no gloves. OSHA didn't exist. The deaths official toll, 96. Bureau of Reclamation counted 6 companies' workers during active construction. That's it. Doesn't count subcontractors, doesn't count workers who quit sick and died after, doesn't count off-site deaths, doesn't count misclassified deaths. Real estimate, 112 to T. 140. Causes, falling, high scalers whose ropes broke, workers who slipped, men who fell into canyon, struck by objects, tools from heights, rocks from blasting, concrete buckets, blasting accidents, premature detonations, misfires during inspection, fly rock, carbon monoxide listed as pneumonia, heart failure, natural causes, never what it was, heat stroke, heat prostration, from 8 hours in 140 degrees with inadequate water, drowning, diverted river, flash floods, reservoir during testing, electrocution, power lines, equipment, wet conditions and exposed wiring, crushed, trucks, cables, machinery. The dam was a moving factory with no guards. First death, J.G. Tierney, drowned. December 20th, 1922, preliminary survey, before construction started. Last death, Patrick Tierney, his son, fell from intake tower December 20th, 1935. Final construction, exactly 13 years apart. The dam killed the father, waited, killed the son. Between them, at least 94 others, probably 138. The stories: Harold Emery, high scaler, August 1931. Rope broke while drilling 700 feet up, fell, died on impact. Company investigated. Rope was defective, didn't change inspection, didn't require steel cables, didn't provide backup. Resumed next day. Carl Merrill, concrete worker, May 1933. Struck by wrench, dropped from cableway 300 feet up, 8 pounds, from 300 feet. Impact like a rifle bullet, died instantly. Worker who dropped it, reprimanded, not fired. Work resumed immediately. Oliver Cowan, tunnel worker, July 1931. Collapsed in diversion tunnel from heat, carried out. Died that evening, heat stroke. Tunnel temp, 140 degrees. No work stoppage, no cooling. Shift continued. Bernard Williams, truck driver, September 1931. Died in hospital. Official cause, pneumonia. Williams worked tunnels 3 months. Complained of headaches, nausea, weakness. Classic CO poisoning. Company doctor said exhaustion. Rest. Back to work. Collapsed 2 weeks later. Died 3 days after. Company paid widow $750. She signed release. Not work-related. 4 children, no income, no options. She signed. Not anomalies, routine. Men died every phase, tunnels, walls, pores, cableways. Company didn't stop, didn't mourn, didn't investigate beyond legally required, almost nothing. Paid widow, hired next man. Kept pouring. The cover-up 6 companies didn't lie, just didn't count. 96 only includes 6 companies' payroll during active construction, excludes subcontractors, excludes off-site deaths, excludes misclassified deaths. Company doctor employed by 6 companies, job wasn't worker health, job was cost control. Injured worker, doctor decides if serious, is, fired, isn't, back to work. Worker dies, doctor writes certificate, determines cause. Company reviews. Cause that costs, least goes on record. No independent oversight. No autopsies unless family demanded. Families rarely did. Autopsies cost money. Family was broke. Injured workers terminated immediately. No workers' comp, no disability, no medical care. Nevada had no law requiring comp for dam workers. Company took full advantage. Minimal treatment. Cut loose. Can't work. Can't stay in Boulder City. Company town. No job, no housing. They left. Many died shortly after, not counted. The motivation. Why take these jobs? Why stay? Because it was 1931. Depression wasn't a statistic. It was collapse. 25% unemployment, 30% industrial, higher rural, farms foreclosed, banks failed, factories closed, families starved, children hungry. Hoover paid $0.50 an hour, $4 a day, $96 a month, survival money. Men came from Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Dust Bowl refugees, farmers who lost land, workers who lost factories. They came because there was nothing else. Stayed because leaving meant going back to nothing. Company knew, exploited. Competition so fierce workers tolerated conditions that would have sparked riots in better times. Complained about heat, soft, fired, replaced. Complained about carbon monoxide, troublemaker. Fired, blacklisted, tried to organize, expelled from Boulder City, banned, run out by company police, no leverage, no options, no power. Company had all of it. That's why the dam was fast, not because workers were heroic, because they were desperate, not because company was efficient, because company was ruthless. Speed wasn't good management, speed was disposable labor. The moral weight. We celebrate Hoover Dam. Teach it in schools, put it on postcards, call it an engineering marvel. It is, but it's also a graveyard. At least 96 died, probably 140. Heat poison, falls, explosions, exhaustion. They died because company valued speed over safety, profit over people, timeline over life. Company got what it wanted, finished early, bonuses paid, profit enormous. 6 companies dissolved after completion. Partners walked away rich. Henry Kaiser built ships in W-202, made another fortune, became industry legend. W.A. Bechtel founded Bechtel Corporation, one of the largest engineering firms in the world. The workers, survivors got $4 a day. Dead got $500 for widows. If that. No pensions, no memorials, no recognition, just names on a plaque. If they made the official list, this is the trade. Speed for safety, efficiency for life. We don't build like this anymore. That's progress, moral evolution, civilization deciding human life has value beyond economic productivity. But we also can't build anymore. That's the uncomfortable truth. So when did we lose the ability? January 1st, 1970. Not poetic license. Actual date. National Environmental Policy Act took effect. NEPA. 3 pages of legislation that changed everything. NEPA didn't ban construction. Required review. Environmental impact statements for major federal actions significantly affecting the quality of the human environment. Sounds reasonable. Was revolutionary. The turning point before 1970, building a federal dam required congressional authorization and engineering approval. That's it. Hoover. Authorized. 1928, Bureau-approved engineering. Construction started 1931. 3 years from authorization to breaking ground. Most of that political fighting over location. Once approved, you built. After 1970, you reviewed. Average environmental impact statement today. 4.5 years. Average page count, 600 to 2,000 pages. Longer than Hoover's entire construction. For paperwork, before you move dirt, and EIS is just the beginning. Permits. Clean Water Act Section 404, 2 to 3 years. Endangered Species Act. Section 7 consultation, 1 to 2 years. Clean Air Act permits, 1 to 2 years. State water rights, 2 to 5 years. Each permit has public comment. Each comment can trigger legal challenges. Each challenge adds years. Modern infrastructure isn't delayed by engineering, by process. California High-Speed Rail approved 2008, promised completion 2020. Current estimate 2030 or later, 22 years. Not done, not operational. Not because we forgot how to build trains, because we added 4.5 years environmental review, 3 years permits, 5 years litigation, 12 years modified construction. Hoover cooling system, illegal under modern thermal pollution standards, dumping billion gallons chilled water back into Colorado, temperature change, affects ecosystems, protected species, ESA consultation required, years baseline studies, years mitigation planning, public comment. Litigation from environmental groups, litigation from agricultural groups. EIS would address downstream temperature impacts, fish migration, sediment transport, riparian vegetation, razorback sucker, bony-tailed chub, humpback chub, Kanab amber snail, dozen other species listed since 1970. Some lived in habitats destroyed by original dam. In 1931, nobody cared. In 2025, destroying critical habitat is federal crime. Can't build the dam. Not because engineering is impossible, because law makes it impossible. The OSHA revolution. OSHA created 1970, same year NEPA. Not coincidence. Before OSHA, workplace safety was company problem. Workers died, company might face lawsuits, bad publicity, lose workers. Hoover killed 96 to 140. 6 companies paid widows $500 to $1,000. Total death compensation, maybe $140,000. That's $2.9 million in 2025 dollars. Dam made $10 million profit. Death costs were rounding errors. After OSHA, workplace deaths became federal violations, criminal. Company doesn't just pay widow, pays fines, faces shutdowns, executives face prosecution. OSHA's first permanent standards, 1971, confined spaces, fall protection, permissible exposure limits, heat stress guidelines. Everyone would have stopped Hoover cold. Confined spaces, diversion tunnels were permit required, continuous monitoring, forced ventilation, standby rescue, entry permits. Hoover had none. Men in 140-degree tunnels with CO and zero ventilation. OSHA shuts it down day one. Fall protection, high scalers on 800-foot cliffs, hemp ropes, no backup, no harnesses, no rescue plans. Modern standards require personal fall arrest, guardrails or nets, rescue within 6 minutes. Can't rescue in 6 minutes on vertical wall. Can't install guardrails on cliff. High scaler method categorically illegal. Modern alternative, tunnel boring machines, shotcrete from inside. No cliff work. Cost, TBM rental $50,000 day. Operator, support staff, $18 million a year. Hoover used rope crews. Ropes cost dollars. Men cost $560 day. TBM safer, also 1,000 times more expensive per worker. Heat stress. OSHA prohibits sustained work above 115 degrees without engineering controls, work-rest cycles, acclimatization. Hoover tunnels, 140 degrees, 8-hour shifts straight, modern compliance, climate-controlled boring, massive ventilation, cooling breaks every 15 minutes. Timeline impact 2 to 3 times longer. Toxic exposure, CO permissible limit 50 ppm over 8 hours. Diversion tunnels had no monitoring. Workers collapsed routinely. Modern compliance, continuous gas monitoring, forced ventilation, respiratory protection, medical surveillance, exposure records. Violate? OSHA doesn't just fine. Criminally prosecutes executives for willful violations causing death. 6 companies killed, 96 to 140. Under modern standards, executives face prison. Not a bad thing. Civilization deciding life has value, but also means can't build at Hoover tempo. The Labor Law Transformation, National Labor Relations Act, passed 1935. Same year Hoover finished, guaranteed workers' right to organize without retaliation. Hoover built under old rules. 6 companies banned unions, expelled organizers, company police enforced. Post-1935, federal crime, unfair labor practice, NLRB investigates, orders reinstatement, levies fines, forces bargaining. Modern union contracts specify work conditions, max consecutive days, mandatory rest, overtime pay, safety committees with authority. Hoover workers, 360 days a year, 8-hour shifts, no breaks, no overtime, all straight time. Modern unions would never agree. Federal law wouldn't allow it anyway. Fair Labor Standards Act 1938, 40-hour work week. Over 40 is overtime at time and a half. Hoover workers, 48 to 56 hours weekly, every week, years, straight pay. Modern labor law makes that illegal. Good. Workers deserve rest, overtime, protection from exploitation, but also means modern construction operates at fundamentally different tempo. Can't run 3 shifts 24/7, 365 when workers legally entitled to days off, overtime, rest breaks. Hoover's speed was enabled by labor exploitation, now illegal. The Institutional Shift Bureau of Reclamation, 1931. Roughly 300 employees, mostly engineers. Chief engineer approved Hoover design. Construction started. Decision-making vertical, hierarchical, fast. Bureau today, roughly 5,000 employees. Approximately 1,200 in environmental and compliance. Modern projects require consultations with 15 to 40 different agencies. Each has review authority. Each can delay. Decision-making isn't vertical, distributed, consensus-based. Nobody has Frank Crow's authority. Nobody can walk site, see problem, fix it by end of shift. Modern project managers coordinate, don't command. Design change at Hoover, Crow told Foreman. Foreman did it, done. Modern federal project, engineering identifies issue, change request. Project manager reviews, program manager reviews, agency technical lead reviews, contracting officer reviews, legal reviews, environmental compliance reviews, if significant, public comment, if affects endangered species, ESA consultation restarts. 6 months minimum, not because people incompetent. Because system designed for risk avoidance, not risk management. Every stakeholder has veto. Nobody has approval authority. That's the institutional legacy of 1970s reforms. We distributed power to prevent abuse, added oversight to prevent disasters, made speed impossible. The uncomfortable question. What we gained. Workers don't die at 2% rates. OSHA construction death rate, 9.5 per 100,000. That's 0.0095%, down from roughly 2% at Hoover. Don't poison rivers. Don't destroy endangered species habitats without review. Don't bulldoze communities without consultation. Don't pay workers in scrip. Don't fire injured workers without compensation. Don't crush unions with private police. Good things, moral progress, civilization improving. What we lost, can't build dam in 5 years, can't build high-speed rail in decade, can't build subway station in less than 5 years. 2nd Avenue Subway, New York, 3 stations, 1.8 miles, 10 years, $445 billion, most expensive subway stations ever built. Hoover, 726 feet tall, 1,244 feet long, 3.25 million cubic yards. 4.5 years, equivalent of 1.4 billion today. We built 726-foot dam faster and cheaper than 3 subway stations. Not because smarter than, not because better technology, because willing to trade human life for speed, and because nobody could stop us. The search for middle ground. Question isn't whether 1970 reforms necessary. They were. Hoover methods morally indefensible. Workers died preventable deaths. Rivers poisoned. Communities bulldozed. Question is, can we find middle ground? Can we build fast and safe, protect workers and meet deadlines, respect environment and solve climate crisis, or locked into system where perfect safety and perfect environmental protection make crucial infrastructure impossible? Because here's crisis. We need to build, desperately. Aging dams failing, bridges collapsing, electrical grid can't handle demand. Need clean energy infrastructure. Climate adaptation, housing, not building any of it at pace required. Not because lack engineers, not because lack money, not because lack technology. Because we've made building legally impossible. Some countries found alternatives. Spain built 1,600 miles high-speed rail in 20 years. China built 25,000 miles in 15 years. Didn't abandon worker safety. Streamlined approval. Concentrated decision-making authority. Accepted calculated risks instead of demanding zero. Risk. Spanish Environmental Review. 18 months, not 4.5 years. Chinese system allows parallel processing, not sequential. Both have strong safety records. Neither has American regulatory paralysis. Difference isn't competence, it's philosophy. We decided process more important than outcomes, review more important than results, avoiding all risk more important than solving problems. That philosophy worked. For a while, it's breaking down, infrastructure crumbling, climate accelerating, housing crises crushing cities, can't build our way out because system won't let us build. The final question. Hoover stands, 90 years old, still generating power, still holding Colorado, still structurally sound. We could not build it today, not because forgot how. Engineering documented, techniques known, materials better, because law won't allow it. Cooling system would require years environmental review. Continuous pour schedule would violate labor laws. High scalars would trigger OSHA violations. Deaths would result in criminal prosecution. Every method that made Hoover fast is now illegal. That's good. Shouldn't build that way. Shouldn't kill workers. Shouldn't poison rivers. Shouldn't exploit desperation. But also shouldn't take 22 years to build train. Shouldn't spend $445 billion on 3 subway stations. Shouldn't let bridges collapse because repair permits take longer than repairs. Here's the question. Is there a version of civilization that values human life and builds infrastructure, protects workers and meets deadlines, respects environment and solves climate change? Or have we built regulatory system that makes necessary impossible? Right now, living in country that can't build, can't repair, can't respond to crisis at speed crisis requires. We look at Hoover and see monument to American capability. Should see monument to capability we've lost, not because lack skill, because lack will. And not because physics changed, because law changed, not because forgot how to build, because we made building illegal. Until we're willing to reform the system, we'll keep staring at monuments of the past, wondering why we can't build anymore. Answer is simple. We chose safety over speed, caution over risk, process over outcomes, right choices, morally, legally, ethically. But they came with cost, and the bill is coming due. The haunting image drive to Hoover today. Stand at observation deck, look down at the curve, smooth concrete face, graceful arch braced against Black Canyon. Looks permanent, eternal, indestructible. It is. Concrete still sound. Structure still stable. Bureau estimates it'll last 300 plus years, but embedded in that concrete, invisible from surface, are 582 miles of steel pipe, the cooling system that made it possible. Veins that bled the fever and saved the structure, still there, grouted solid, permanent ghosts, and buried deeper, invisible, uncounted, unmarked, are the men who made it possible. 96 names on official memorial, maybe 140 in reality. Men who died in 140-degree tunnels, fell from 800-foot cliffs, collapsed from CO poisoning misclassified as pneumonia. Men paid $4 a day to risk their lives because it was 1931 and there was nothing else. The dam is monument to their desperation, to speed that desperation enabled, to cost of building without limits. We don't build monuments like that anymore, should be grateful, but should also ask, what monuments are we building instead? What will stand in 90 years and make people ask, how did they do that? Right now, answer is nothing. We're not building monuments, we're filing environmental impact statements. Might be the right choice. But it's also the end of something. Hoover is the last of its kind. Last great American structure built at wartime speed during peacetime. Last monument to the idea that we could do anything, build anything, achieve anything, even if it killed us. We traded that capability for civilization, for safety, for law. Got a world where workers go home alive, where rivers run cleaner, where communities have voice. That's progress. But progress has a price, and Hoover Dam is the monument to what we paid for it.